Welcome to the Jewish Education Experience podcast with your hosts, Yasmina and Ari, who will be uncovering gems of wisdom with Jewish educators from around the world.
To our audience, thank you so much. We really appreciate your support, and we appreciate you sharing our podcast with others also. Please consider supporting our podcast financially by contributing via Zelle, jewisheducationpodcast@gmail.com, or by joining our Patreon community, www.patreon.com/Jewish Education Experience Podcast. And to all of you Jewish educators and students of Jewish education around the world, chizchu ve'imtzu. May you be strengthened and encouraged in your holy endeavors. Our guest today is Rabbi Ami Monson. And he's a longtime educator, grew up in Philadelphia. He and I have been longtime friends, and we taught at Congregation Beth Zion-Beth Israel for a while together, and we were also USY, that's United Synagogue Youth advisors together. And he has also been able to teach on both coasts, the East Coast and the West Coast. And we are going to find out a little bit more about him. Hi, Ami. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Hi, Yaz.
It's such a pleasure. Will you tell us a little bit more about yourself and just how you began your journey in education?
Sure, of course. I'm very blessed. I went into the family business. I went to Jewish education. My dad was an ordained conservative rabbi. My mother, a professor of Jewish sociology. I grew up in Philadelphia. My dad was the Hillel Rabbi at University of Pennsylvania for 9 years. And my mom is a professor and eventually a dean at Gratz College in Melrose Park, Pennsylvania. First started at 10th and Tabor.
Wow.
And I went to very blessed to go to elementary school at Perelman Jewish Day School, and then Akiba Hebrew Academy, which is now Barak Hebrew Academy, and then a year of college. I spent my junior year at Hebrew University in the Rothberg School for overseas students.
So what did you do there? What did that lead to?
I studied comparative religion. I got to really have my eyes open to not just Judaism in Israel, but also the Armenian religion, Christianity, and Islam.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it was really cool. I remember one project, I had this amazing professor, Steve Kaplan, I believe his name was, who gave us a project to go to the 4 holiest sites of the 4 different major religions in Israel. And I remember going to the Holy Sepulchre, the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock, and to the Kotel, the Western Wall, and to an Armenian church where I heard the most beautiful boys choir I've ever heard.
Wow. That's so fascinating. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So did you do that? How long was that?
I was in Israel for a year.
For a year. Okay.
Yeah.
And then where did you go after that? How did you end up, teaching in Philly and then moving to the West Coast? And
great question. I decided to take advantage of the opportunity to get a free education, a free master's degree at Gratz College. So I started in 1995 to get a master's in Jewish education, a master's in Jewish studies, and a certificate in Jewish communal service.
Okay.
And then eventually in 2010, they changed some of the rules so I could do my internship at my job just as a separate entity, and finished out a couple classes and was able to finish out the 3rd master's in Jewish communal service.
Wow.
When one of the extra special, I got to have my own mother as my professor for 2 classes and
That's
as an
awesome.
advisor. But what I did was I took over for my friend Michael Kelberg, a very close old friend of mine and a friend of Yazi's, of yours, and who I took over for him as a Hebrew school teacher and USY advisor at United Synagogue in Albany Park. and didn't realize that it was actually really my calling. I really enjoyed spending time with youth and being an advisor for youth and teaching the youth, and it became something I didn't realize was going to be part of me for the rest of my life.
It's true. Are you still a USY advisor now?
I'm not an advisor now, but I do still teach Hebrew school. I'm probably in my about 25th year.
Wow.
Or 26th year of teaching Hebrew school.
My gosh, that's so awesome. And you're really great at it. I remember at least how at BZBI, how much the kids really enjoyed having you as their teacher and also as a USY advisor.
Yeah, I think the passionate thing for me, especially with BZBI, was that was my home synagogue that I grew up in. So I felt a sense, it really wasn't about the paycheck. It was about giving back. And the educational director, Cindy, was great. And I just really enjoyed going into that building every Monday night, because it really gave me a sense of giving back to my childhood and to the place where I was raised.
For sure. Now, what are you doing in Vegas? What led you there?
Oh, great question. So after graduate school at Gratz, I was a second grade Hebrew assistant Judaic studies teacher at the Perelman Jewish School on the other side in the Elkins Park area. And then I did Hillel for 4 years at Queens College. And then I did Maccabi USA Sports for Israel as a program director for 11 and a half years. And my wife and I decided to sort of say, either we're going to take a chance now and venture out, or we're going to be in Philadelphia forever. And we wanted to venture out, so I started applying to jobs all around the country.
Wow.
And including Seattle, Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, Birmingham, Alabama, and an opportunity came up. One of my mentors and idols, and second mom to me, Wendy Light, made a shidduch, a connection with me and Rabbi Ed Feinstein, the head rabbi at Valley Beth Shalom in Encino.
Wow.
And I interviewed to be the director of youth engagement, and it was a real match made in heaven. It was a perfect opportunity for me to take on the West Coast and to learn West Coast Judaism and the environment. It was really...
It's a little different.
Things are a little different, but and certainly a lot of fun. But what I was really most impressed with was how many incredible Jewish educators and rabbis and cantors and clinical pastoral educators there are in LA, and how influenced I was and am by them. And besides Rabbi Feinstein, but you have Rabbi Wolpe and Rabbi Sharon Brous out there, and just a plethora of rabbis, Rabbi Vogel, who are just really wonderful people to emulate and to extract different ways of how to be the best rabbi and educator you can be. And not only did I serve as the director of youth engagement, but I also was a Hebrew school teacher in their Hebrew school, the Eitz Chaim Learning Center. I also was a CIT director in the summer camp. In my latter years, I did B'nai Mitzvah tutoring. I'm part of the B'nai Mitzvah team. And I was also able to be a rabbinic intern in my last year.
Wow, it's amazing. And then you ended up in Vegas.
And then I ended up in Vegas. But basically what happened was my first came to LA, Rabbi Feinstein asked me, why'd you go to rabbinical school? And I said, I don't know. It's sort of, I'm in the family of rabbis. So, I just, it was always in the back of my mind, but never, I did graduate school so early. I just figured that's all I needed. And then he kind of pushed, and I applied and got in and started at AJU for conservative Judaism.
Cool.
And then I was there for a year and a half, and then switched to the Academy for Jewish Religion.
Okay.
And I was in my last year at VBS, but it was not my last year of rabbinical school. And I was applying to jobs to move to the East Coast and sort of go, gear up for when I would graduate rabbinical school, only having 1 year left. And the COVID came, COVID came, and the pandemic came, and had to switch things around. I'm working in the secular world in Vegas, but I teach in the Hebrew school part-time. I'm able to do rabbinical school via online, and I do B'nai Mitzvah tutoring through Hebrew Helpers,
Okay.
run by my friend Todd Schatz.
Very cool. He was also in USY, right? Why
Yep,
do
he
I
was a
know
big
that
US
name?
wire.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so.
His brother and sister. They were my US wires, George and Annette Schatz.
Right. There we go. That's who I know. Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a small Jewish world. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So how much longer do you have in your rabbinical studies?
I have today, actually. Later today is my last day of the first semester.
Wow.
And then I have second semester. I have a couple courses, but right now what I'm working on, which has been a fascinating experience, is my thesis, my rabbinic thesis. My school requires a rabbinic thesis, and as well as a cantorial. And so I'm doing it on the American Jewish view of the elderly. While I was on top of everything else, while I was in LA, I substituted for the rabbis at the Jewish home on a number of Shabbatot, probably 15 to 20 Shabbatot. I substituted for the rabbis and really fell in love with the elderly, and became very passionate about it, and wanted to do further research both through Jewish text and through a survey to find out people's views and how we were taught to be respectful and kind and treat the elderly, and then what was actually happening in today's world with the treatment of the elderly. And they were drastically different. So
definitely.
Yeah.
I definitely see that there's a big improvement that we could take to how we treat the elderly. And I think right now also it seems to be so hard just with coronavirus. There's so many of them are isolated. They're not able to see their family. And I'm sure that that's got to be very difficult too.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
Since go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Since you've worked with the various age groups, how do you talk about God? How do you address that?
I think it's a great question. While I was at Valley Beth Shalom, I was able to, even though I only met him on 2 occasions, and unfortunately passed away about 5-6 years ago. Rabbi Harold Schulweis was the Rabbi Emeritus at Valley Beth Shalom, and he was a nationally renowned rabbi. And he believed in a different theology. He believed in what we call a predicate theology, which, meaning, to make it as simple as possible, was that looking at God on the same plane as the human, not looking at God as someone or as something up in the air, or that, not that we just can't see, but that we always, if you think about sports, when someone hits a home run, when they get to the home plate, they look up and they thank God for, or whatever they believe in, upstairs. But what Rabbi Schulweis believed was that through our acts and things that we do, or like social action, social justice, etc., that we are being God-like. And that is what I've been able to sort of transform in my language to the teens in the youth group, and also in the Hebrew school, to say, think about every time you do some kind of tzedakah, some kind of act of loving kindness for someone else, you're being in God-like. You're doing something that God would want you. It's not always about davening and going to synagogue and just being part of the Jewish community. It's acting upon what you're learning, taking the midot and Jewish values and putting them into action. And that really relates to kids. And actually, I've also used it with the elderly and adults to help understand the importance of Judaism, our creating a relationship with Hashem, and to cultivate our understanding, theology, ideology of where God is in our lives, and where we are in God's life.
Yeah, for sure. I like that, because it's true. Sometimes we forget that, yeah, you can daven and you can do all these things, but if you're not even treating people with respect, if you're not even being kind to them, then what good is how much of the parsha you know? What good is, yeah, you do need that too.
Yeah, I think they really go hand in hand. I think you need the knowledge, and to continue to always study Torah. You should never feel like you're enough, like there's enough, or that you're done. You should be ongoing, and combined, your actions of how we treat others and doing things for others should never stop either. And they really should. It's at its best when it's going together.
For sure. Like you mentioned, continuing to learn and study Torah, and also incorporating midot and all of those things and putting it into practice. So how would you use that, I guess, to define education?
I think education comes in different forms. There's book, looking into a book and studying something and learning something. Then there's learning with someone. Every Sunday morning I do Mishnah with my father at 5 a.m. my time, 8 a.m. his time.
Wow.
And it's a different kind of learning than me just reading something. He takes what I've learned of what I've read and then makes sense of it. Really, together we make sense of the text. And that's, two different ways of learning. And the third way is, one of the other ways is through action, is to learn through, it says, Ezehu Chacham halamed mikol adam, who is wise, one who learns from everyone else.
Yeah.
What the Chachamim were saying in Pirkei Avot was, you can learn from every single person that you come into contact with.
It's true.
Meaning that from the homeless person on the street to the president of the United States to just an ordinary everyday worker in our lives, we can learn something from. It's a day-to-day education that's not from a book. Right. It's what I think is one of the most important things is life experience, which goes back to the elderly, that they have 70, 80 years of life experience. They have been around the block more than others, that we should respect their knowledge and to extract from their knowledge. And that's part of that's another form of education, is to learn from other people, not just from a book or with someone, but to learn from someone who is an expert. So right there, you have about 4 or 5 different areas. If you look at it in a pie chart, you would have a pie that was cut into 5 parts. Those are the different 5 ways that education comes about. And the thing is that you need to have all that going on at the same time to what I would call being fully educated.
Right.
And also just being a student in a learning environment. One of the things I've always prided myself is, throughout my entire life, whether I was 10 years old, 20, 30, 40, and close to 50, is I've always carried a book bag. I've always had some kind of book bag to work, and it always has books in it. It always has, and I've had many people ask me why I do that. Is because it reminds me that I'm always a student, and I think that the best people, the most educated people, are the ones who, as I said, don't say, "Well, I'm done. I've had my fill of education. I'm done," because you're really never done. You should be studying Torah and enhance your education to the day you are not part of this earth anymore. And I think that's really important. The other thing is also to push yourself to not only educate yourself Jewishly, but in terms of relating to students and kids and what's happening in the world, to really, you don't have to be an expert in everything, but I think to know what's happening politically, what's happening socially, entertainment, sports, food, whatever it is, the more the knowledge, the bigger the potpourri or myriad of subjects that you have knowledge of, the more you can relate to others and and create connections with those people through education.
For sure. Well, I just want to pick up on a couple of things you mentioned. First off, I love that you learn with your father, because, you know, we're always, some of the other educators that we've interviewed talk about how important learning in the home is and how you continue building on that foundation. And it's so great that you still learn with your father and you take that time to learn together, and you probably learn from him, he learns from you. How long have you guys been doing that?
I think it's been over a year and a half.
Wow.
We've been doing that. What we did was we started with Mishnah Sanhedrin and just got really into it and enjoyed it. And then we started to designate with holidays that were coming up. So Mishnah, Rosh Hashanah. I think we started with Pesach and then Rosh Hashanah. And right now we're actually doing Mishnah Shabbat. And it's just fascinating. I mean, it's fascinating stuff. Some things that are, have no relevance in our life now, but there are a lot that are, but especially when we were studying leading up to Rosh Hashanah, or Yom Kippur, that there seemed to be a lot of parallels to what was happening in the world with pandemic and stuff. Mm-hmm. Oh, I know what it was. I'm sorry. We were studying fasting and fasting reasons for fasting, and it was way too similar to what was happening with the pandemic. Wow. So sometimes Mishnah imitates life, if you want to put it that way. And sure. It was really wild to do that, but it's an opportunity for us to learn. It's an opportunity for us to connect, and something to look forward to. Obviously, 5 a.m. for a lot of people is people would think I'm crazy, but it's actually when I'm probably most alert, and I just feel like it's something I've committed to in my enhancement of my education.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, keep it up.
Thank you.
The other thing I also want to pull from what you mentioned is the fact that you said trying to be knowledgeable and being able to be relatable to all different types of people. And I'm sure the benefit that we have right now is the internet, and that we can, look up different things and research different things or learn different things. And I guess the hard part about it is just figuring out what's true and what's just fluff. But since so many of us are using the internet, what kinds of things, or what do you find to be some challenges or the biggest challenge that you faced as an educator?
I like to look at the positives, and things like reformjudaism.com, USCJ, the Conservative Movement's website, Chabad.org, especially Sfaria. All these wonderful opportunities are great resources for learning with Daf Yomi, and but also with Facebook, there's a group called Jed Lab, which is all a bunch of Jewish educators and helping each other out, giving each other ideas, and I find it really fascinating and wonderful, and have learned a lot from them. And then there are a lot of other websites and sites and people. One of the things I've taken advantage during the pandemic is to watch different ways that rabbis and cantors have led services. I've read a lot of their sermons and see the different styles and forms that people use. I think the problems with the internet, or the things that I've come into contact with that frustrate me a little bit, is one is miseducation, things that are not accurate.
For sure.
I think any profanity or anti-Israel, anti-Judaism, anti-Semitism that comes up on the internet is so easy to see, and I think it steers people the wrong way. Definitely. And it's a real miseducation. And I think the other blockade is there's so much out there that you can't read everything. You can't tackle everything. And sometimes I think people give up when they feel that there's too much out there, and how to decipher what is really most important, what's not. There's a website called Quora, Quora, which asks a lot of questions and gives great answers, both Jewish and not Jewish. And I mean, it's a secular website, but it's really a very informative thing, and I love reading it and just see people's opinions and commentary. And through my research through school, I've been able to discover a lot of secular and Jewish websites that are very helpful, but there are also, again, some that are very harsh and have some anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic feelings, and you just have to be really careful, especially when it comes to talk about the Bible. I think there's a lot of controversy or a lot of different opinions when it comes to Bible study. And you have to take it with a grain of salt and be open-minded and understand that people are coming from different places and different theologies and different theories when it comes to the religion.
Yeah, that's definitely true. But I use some of the sources you mentioned too, Sefaria and Chabad and different ones. So it's and Quora. I definitely am also interested in seeing the responses that people have. It's very fascinating.
Yeah, it's one of the things I think that's important. I'm sorry to interrupt. Was that one of the things I should say is my dad and I, when we study, we use Professor Josh Kolb from the Conservative Yeshiva.
Okay.
We use his commentary, which is online, while we're doing it. So we have something that we're using sort of as our curriculum, which is his stuff. So that in itself is a tremendous resource. And it happened to be that Josh Kolb is someone that you are aware of. His mother was a longtime Jewish educator in Beth Judah down the shore. And he also was my counselor at Camp Ramah in the Poconos. So there's a real connection of here's someone who has become so learned and an expert in Talmud and Mishnah commentary, that to be able to use that because the internet, even though Professor Kolb lives in Israel, that we get the opportunity to take advantage of his knowledge and wisdom to learn.
For sure. So with all the different resources, all the things that are out there, the challenges, all the positives, how do you continue to stay motivated to continue to put yourself out there and educate and learn and grow?
Yeah, Yaz, I think it's one of the most beautiful questions you ask, if not the best question you've asked, is, and I think it's because I think what happens with good Jewish educators is that they're really passionate about it, and that passion is ignited at one point. It starts at one point, and then it just continues, and hopefully that flame never goes out. We talk a lot in Judaism, there's a lot of talk about Aish and or, like you have in the Orthodox movement. There are a lot of their yeshivot or samech or Aish Torah, or we use light and fire as important. And I think the reason for that has to do with there's a flame, not just the flame that we light on Shabbat or we just did in Hanukkah, but there's a flame within us. There's something within us that says, this is what my calling is. I want to educate people. I want to be educated, and I want to educate others. And we, at different times, we want to educate different ages, different types of people. But for me personally, what motivates me is I always want to be a resource. I always want to be someone that people can count on, people can call, people can email, text, whatever, and say, Ami, can you help me with this? Ami, do you have ideas with this within Jewish education? This past week alone, I had two kids call upon me who I have not seen in probably at least 7-8 months, if not almost a year, who are my Hebrew school kids who want recommendations to get accepted to Jewish day school for high school. And I'm thinking, wow, what a value, what an honor, what a kavod it is for these kids to call upon me when they have so many different influences and people they could go to in LA who they've had or they know or talk to on a regular basis to recommend them for higher Jewish education in high school, and they've come to me, and what they don't realize, and I try to explain to them, is that it's a real privilege and honor for me to have the ability to do that. And because of my experience with them as their Hebrew school teacher, and it was such a profound experience, especially with these two kids, that just ignites me more and makes me want to learn more and educate myself more to be available to others, both as a resource and as a helper. We just went through Hanukkah, and we talk about the shamash as a helper or candle. I see myself a lot, if you want to talk about a analogy, as the shamash. I want to be the shamash to people and keep the light going, keep the excitement about being Jewish and Jewish education and learning more, and how important it is. Through Hebrew Helpers, I was assigned two kids, a brother and sister combination, in teaching them and educating them the last 5 months. And the brother had his bar mitzvah about 2 weeks ago, and he knew nothing. He really knew nothing before coming into our education. Then here by the time he had his bar mitzvah, he did one aliyah. He did the Shema perfectly. He did the brachot, the aliyah Torah, and he was able to articulate in his bar mitzvah speech the importance of his parsha, but not only just his parsha, but how it relates to him in his daily life, and including the pandemic and what he learned educationally. And we did midot throughout the time as well, and that was just very rewarding. It's a very personally rewarding and fulfilling experience, and I feel like it's sort of like those commercials where it says there's a food that you can't only take one, you have to take a bunch. It's the same concept. I can't just educate one person or be there for one person and then that's it. It has to keep going on. I thrive. I am ignited. I'm excited, and I'm, most important, I love this word, is I'm passionate to help others and be there for others, and that's what really motivates me Jewishly and as a Jewish educator.
That's so amazing, and it's so great to see, as educators, we really put our all into it, and like you said, when you see a student and they're struggling, they may come from, they don't know that much, maybe they don't know anything, and then you see them at the end, towards later in their journey, and they learn so much, and kol hakavod to you. Like, that's such an honor for you that you were able to help these students, and now the students come back to you and they say, Ami, can you write a recommendation for me? Or Ami, can you answer this for me? And they reach out to you. That really, it's such an honor, and keep it up. That
Thank you.
We definitely need to continue that, and we need to continue to inspire kids, teenagers, to want to continue being Jewish. It's a tough world today, and
yeah, I think you really touched upon the other big word that the if you want to call it a buzzword that I think is most important is inspiration. I think inspiring another. Look, what I tell my Hebrew school kids all the time, and I tell other people, even my classmates at school, is the most important thing that one person, I believe, can give to another person is believing in them. If you believe in another person, they can strive to do anything. If you notice, there's always someone, all those people who've had major success have had major success because someone believed in them, whether it was their parent, a guardian, a friend, a teacher, a mentor, whatever it is, inspired them, believed in them, that they had the ability to succeed in whatever they wanted to focus on. And that's why that was one of the major reasons they're successful. So what I want to do is be that person to believe in others so they can reach their utmost potential. And I think that's really, and that's whether secular or Jewish, I think that's just the most important thing in terms of what motivates me to do what I do.
Definitely. And I like before that you had mentioned about with other educators, So what advice would you give to new educators that are just beginning their journey?
I'm going to go, I love Pirkei Avot, and so I'm going to go partially to Pirkei Avot. And my favorite quote, "Aselecha rav u'kanelecha chaver, v'havei dan l'chef sechut." Acquire yourself a teacher, a Rabbi, if you will. Get yourself, it actually says kneh, which means buy, but in this case, get yourself a friend,
Right.
and judge every person favorably. I think that's a really profound statement for all new Jewish educators, you need to have a mentor. I've been very blessed. I have hundreds of, and I don't mean that jokingly. I mean that seriously. I have hundreds of people that I'm able to not only call my rabbi, but to look upon to get different models of how to be the best Jewish educator and the best human being possible. One of the things I think I'm a huge believer in, and I think you've seen this in action with me, is mentorship and mentoring. Whether it's Rabbi Sharon Brous at ECAR in LA as a mentor, or Rabbi Ed Feinstein at Valley Beth Shalom, or Rabbi Farkas at Valley Beth Shalom, or my parents, of course. I was very blessed. I had it at home. I had two amazing parents to show me the way, and a grandfather who was a rabbi. And even though I never got to meet him, my great-grandfather was a rabbi, but I've read his papers and learned from his actions that it's really important to have people to emulate, and the right people to emulate, to be the best person and educator that you can be.
Sure.
I think it's also very important to have confidants. You need to have people who are going to sort of tell you along the way, you're doing this right, but you could do this better. And someone who you trust to show you the way. And I think that's really important. So you have your distance mentor. I have a number of wonderful professors at my school at AJR, but one in particular, Rabbi Elijah Shochet, who is a conservative rabbi for many years in LA, is someone I admire and care for very much. And he's shown me the way through Talmud, but also through just personal discussions about how to curb certain things, look at certain things, how to better myself personally and professionally. And I think that's important. And I think the other thing is, and what I mean with the judging every person favorably, is not to make assumptions that a new Jewish educator, if you're in a Hebrew school, don't clump all the kids together.
Right.
Look at them as individuals. To learn about what motivates them and what excites them in the secular world, and you can turn that into Judaism. What do I mean by that? I was able, with this class I had at my last year of VBS, I had a very special relationship with them. They were amazing, probably one of my best classes, if not my best class ever, that I connected with. I'm still close with all of them. And mind you, there's probably there's at least a 35 year age difference. But I had to study. Yes, and I didn't study Talmud and Mishnah to understand that class. I had to study the art of Minecraft and TikTok and YouTubers, and what were the latest trends in music and sports, and what are the kids into? And I think that's really important, to speak their lingo. And that's what I mean in terms of judging. We can't judge and say, oh, well, Minecraft is a waste of time, so I'm not going to, relate that to Jewish, so the kids understand. I'm going to teach what I want to teach. No, you'll fail. You won't be successful. You need to understand the people that you're working with, and to really understand all ages. You have to study what's going on in life on all different levels. If it's the little kids, you have to know your, you have to know about Muppet Babies and and Dora the Explorer and stuff like that. If it's teenagers, you have to understand the TikToks and the YouTubes and Minecraft and all the different gadgets that they're using. If it's college students, you need to understand what it means to be active on a college campus. What are they going through? What are all the changes they're going through? What are the pressures they're going through to make it in the world as young adults? how do you make it in the world? What's your career path, and work with them. And then with elderly, you have to understand their situation and the limitations that they have, and how can you make it so they have a feel of opportunity as opposed to limits.
Right.
So.
I like that. Definitely connecting with our students where they are and having that, bridging that gap, because there is an age difference. There are these things. We have different personalities and interests. But if they know that you're being sincere and you really want to connect with them, they're going to open up that much more, and they're going to want to
100%.
continue to learn. So
the other thing I would say is also, Yazi, don't afraid to be personal with kids, especially. Mm-hmm. Don't afraid to be personal with adults. As long as there's, boundaries, there's nothing wrong with being honest about your experiences. And because I think that's where you can relate most. Yeah. All the different sermons I've given at my school during services, or the sermons I gave working the Jewish home, I would say 95% of them had some kind of personal story or something that people could relate to understand where I was coming from and why these things were so important to me. And I think that really is one of the things that helps me to connect, to have that devek, to have that glue, that connection with all different ages.
For sure. Well, here's our last question. It's a little bit of a challenge, but it probably ties into some of what you mentioned already. Sure. What do you think successful Jewish education will look like in the future?
Oh, it's a great question. I think successful Jewish education will look like, will be demonstrated by people who really take the time to continue to progress, to learn the computer, to learn social media, to use what is at our fingertips to the best of their ability, especially with things like Zoom and PowerPoint presentations you can put through sharing on Zoom, innovation labs, thinking outside the box. I think you can go in certain Hebrew schools with still a little bit of a traditional model, but that has to be mixed with a more modern twist. Mm-hmm. As Hebrew school goes down in a lot of places in terms of time, it started out as 3 days a week to 2, and in many places 1 day a week. How much can we get done in 1 day?
Right.
We need to establish, in order for Jewish education to be successful, we have to have what's called hidden curriculum, which means helping kids and adults realize that they're being educated without knowing it. So whether it's offering up different classes through the synagogue, through the JCCs, through all the different Jewish institutions, but continuing to educate Jews of all ages in all different forms. Don't be afraid to open up something new. My friend Zach, one of my colleagues, just opened up a cafe, helped with another person that helped up a cafe in LA during the pandemic, opened up a cafe that serves as a place of learning Yiddish, and also as a synagogue. And they are, having services every weekend, and it's thinking outside the box. I mean, who would have thought of a synagogue cafe learning establishment, even 15, 20 years ago? So I really think people are being innovative. As I mentioned before, people like Rabbi Sharon Brous, and then people in New York. There's a couple of wonderful rabbis who have opened up institutions that are more than just the synagogue. It's not about the building, it's about the people, and it's about what kind of learning and kind of attitude and opportunities are, and being engaging. I think if the more engaging and the more you're attractive to the different populations, the better it's going to be. There is the controversy of tradition versus, open-minded about, people who are in interfaith couples, interfaith relationships, people who are on the cusp of wanting to convert, etc., and acceptance. And I think if Jewish life is going to continue and be prosperous, we have to have more of a level of acceptance, not to take away our beliefs and our morals and ethics, but to be open-minded, and the more welcoming we are and the more caring we are, the more positive feedback and people wanting to be Jewish and wanting to raise Jewish children is going to happen. So I think, what is Judaism? It's going to be different. It's going to be mixed. And as the family dynamic, the nuclear family, there's no more sort of nuclear family. That dynamic has changed so much between, especially with the LGBTQ community or QT community. And sorry if I don't get all my terms correct. And between Reform Judaism, Reconstructionist, Humanistic Judaism, Conservative Judaism, Orthodox, and the more left-wing Orthodox are ordaining female rabbis, and more women are learning and being educators. Our whole landscape is changing, and to be honest, I think in a very positive way. There was a lot of push for it in the 70s and 80s, and that wasn't that long ago, and we've really come a long way. It is outstanding for me, and especially as the son of two people who were so vocal about female Jewish leaders in the 70s and 80s, that and today, that it's beautiful to see that when I say my mentors and people I emulate, there are so many that are Jewish female rabbis and cantors and educators, is really, and it just rolls off my tongue, is just a beautiful thing. It's something I really pride myself on, and starting with my mom and my dad, but also just wonderful people who have really set a great tone and are doing wonderful things throughout the United States and around the world.
Right. And ultimately, like you said, we need to remember that we're all Jews, no matter what our background is, no matter whether we affiliate with Orthodox, Reconstructionist, conservative, whatever. We all have a ultimate goal, right? That we want to continue to be here. We want there to continue to be Jews and Jewish children and
Sure.
grow, and we need to work together and find ways to focus on our commonalities rather than our differences.
Right.
So let's
Absolutely.
hope we can continue to move forward in that department. Yeah. And I know the pandemic has been very challenging, but
right. But it's also, I have, since the pandemic started, I've always taken a very positive outlook. And I think if you sit down and you look at the innovation that people have done through the pandemic to reach out to their community, whether it's synagogue-based or not synagogue-based, what people are offering, from bingo, Jewish bingo or bingo in general, to lectures, to special holiday programs, etc., or communities coming together, synagogues working together to create a welcoming atmosphere, even if it's through the computer or through a drive-in, like these drive-in concerts and drive-in movies and drive-in things, is just really fabulous and fascinating. And I think that, that's, if anything we learned positively from the pandemic, was to go out of our comfort zone and realize that there's more than just the synagogue building. I mean, the synagogue building and the JCC buildings and all these places are wonderful places, and I really want to see people back in them, and synagogues and JCCs and all these institutions be full of people and enjoying Jewish life. But for people like, let's say, the elderly who don't have that access and are immobile, we now have an avenue to get to them,
right,
where they can be a part of the community without having to spend hours just to take a 15-minute ride to the JC synagogue, but we can reach out to them where we are in their household, we're in their bedroom, if you will, so to speak, and we're there and we are connecting with them and making them feel a part of the community.
right.
And that I think is really important, and a very big positive that came out of the pandemic is to understand things beyond the building, beyond face-to-face, but face-to-face virtually.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm sure there are lots more good things to come, and we look forward to continuing to talk with you and other educators and just continuing to tie together and rally together. And we just really appreciate that you joined us today on this podcast episode. And again, thank you so much for your time and your insight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's a real honor and privilege. It's an honor and privilege to be called a Jewish educator, and certainly excited to be a rabbi, but not for the title, but for the avenues it opens up for me to educate more people and be a resource and a mentor for more people. And obviously this brought you and I back together, which is a lot of fun, and a lot of love and respect for your family and care for your family. And Judaism brought us together, so that you have to think about the magic of that.
For sure. And we wish you all the best with
Thank
Rabbinical
you.
School. Keep us posted on your journey and your next steps. And we look forward to speaking with you more. And please send regards to Manya and the boys.
Will do.